Good morning and welcome to Identity Leathercraft. We're just going to answer a question that came in, which was about how to get leather to look distressed and old. So I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how to do this. So I'm just starting with a piece of the lightweight veg tan calf, which comes in our pieces bags. It's got a nice sort of weight. It's got some firmness at the moment, but we're going to see if we can make it look softer and through this process. It's very good value and it's great for wallet making and everything. So if you want to add a bit of character to your wallet or to your dyeing process, this is how you do it. A lot of this sort of thing is experimenting to get the exact look you want. So this will just give you a few tips, but obviously just take it in your own direction and see where you go. So to start with, I'm going to use an old toothbrush and I'm just going to rub over the grain a bit. This is just to break up the grain, so it's kind of doing all the opposite things to what you'd normally do. Just creates a little bit of roughness. And then just to add to that, I'm going to do a really tiny bit of very light scratching with the sandpaper, which would just mimic some of the wear and tear on leather. So really just very few, and I've got quite a fine grade here. Again, this will just give a little bit of texture and it will take the dye in slightly different ways. And then I'm going to put a little bit of Neatsfoot oil onto the leather. I'm not going to soak it in any way, but I just want to create different patches of density and it's going to affect how the dye goes in. So I'm just going to put some in and work it over. Less is more with this oil. So it's kind of the opposite to what we would normally do, which is kind of get things even. You're actually going for different sections, having lighter areas and some depth. So you can probably see that starting to take shape. Now if I was going to make this into, say, a little book or something, you might want to think about where your wear and tear is on the leather. So if you were to do that, I'm going to put a little darker bit down that spine. Like that. So it just gives you kind of an angle of what would be where some of the wear would go if you were creating a patterner. So I've got that in, and now the next step is to do all the things that we say not to normally do. So you want to just really screw the leather up and work it. This looks a bit drastic, but in the tannery there's a process called staking, which is actually where all the fat liquors and oils get really moved into the fibres, and essentially the leather is sort of tumbled or it's dragged over things and stretched, and this works those oils down into the collagen fibres, and it has the advantage as well of creating that nice wear look in the grain and also softening the leather, so it starts to really work in. So you can already see that there's quite a different look to that leather. And then I'm going to put on the antique gel. Actually no, I'm going to start off with some darker tone first in the Bourneville brown. I'm going to put a little bit in my dish first, and again a lot, you don't need much with this bit. So this is quite a dark brown, and again I'm just going to go over that bit. And really what I want to do with this, I'm going to use a bit of water as well, just to thin that out a bit. But I just want to create a bit of movement and darkness over it. And you kind of need to work fairly quickly with this. And then I'm going to put in some Briar brown of the antique gel. I'm using a different sponge. This is very thick, I'm working this over. And I always work in circles when I'm putting these dies on, just kind of helps to work it in. And these antique gels hold several different colours in suspension, so that when you put them down you don't get a flat dye colour, so they're ideal for using for this sort of thing. So that gives me a lighter brown over the top of my dark. And then I'm going to go back with the same sponge to a little bit of the dark, and just wipe it off, and I'm going to dip it in my water a bit as well. So what I want now is to overlay some of the water stain in a darker shade. So I'm building up some of the patina. And this starts to blend in some of those earlier marks we made. And I think that should do it. I've got quite a nice look going on there. So again, you might want to wear gloves. You probably will want to wear gloves. I'm not very good at doing that. Just going to do the scrunching again. So again, you're kind of breaking the grain up a little. You're creating these lovely creases in, and you're also, while there's some content in the leather, you're kind of allowing that to kind of go right through the collagen fibres and keep the leather softer. So you end up with a look something along those lines, which I'm just going to get a piece of kitchen towel, always handy to have when you're dyeing. Just give it a bit of a buff, to lift off any surface, anything that's sitting on the top surface. Also, this will work with the waxes that are in the antique gel. It's a very heavy wax compound, so it's kind of like an all-in-one finish. And you should be able to see that polishing up and developing a nice patina. I'm going to hold that up so hopefully you can see that. And you can see it's a lot more supple and soft compared to the original. This is the other half of the same piece of leather. So you can see the firmness and the softness. So that's how to age and distress a piece of leather, how to change the properties to get it to something near to what you might want to use. I hope you found that helpful. You can get all these supplies from www.identityleathercraft.com. Thank you for watching.